My name is Marcus Hale, 44, Boston-born, the guy who color codes his calendars and still irons his own shirts on Sundays. For 21 years, I believed in straight lines. Work hard at Brighton Capital, honor your vows, raise two good boys, Tyler and Chase, and never, ever, invite chaos home. Evelyn Carter brought color to the lines. She was an art historian who could make a coffee-stained catalog sound like scripture. She filled our Colonial and Brookline with framed exhibition placards, postcard skylines, and playlists that knew exactly when to swell. When the boys left for college, our house got louder with silence. I handled it the only way I knew: longer hours, longer runs, longer stares at spreadsheets. Evelyn handled it with late docent meetings, curator dinners, and a phone that learned to sleep face down. On a Thursday that smelled like grilled sirloin and victory, I landed a state pension fund we'd chased for a year. I grabbed her favorite tie, the Willamette Pinot we discovered on a trip, and walked into a home I was ready to celebrate in. Evelyn jumped when I set my hands on her shoulders. The laptop snapped shut. A single line burned into my vision. He has no idea. Tomorrow, same place. I've studied risk my entire career. The worst mistakes are sudden ones. I inhaled, found my smile, and set plates like nothing had changed. We ate. We asked each other about days we didn't want to talk about. When dishes were done, she leaned against the counter and said, too carefully, "We need to talk without fighting." I didn't know we were fighting, I said. We've drifted, Marcus. I need more room. For both of us. She swallowed, eyes fixed on the magnet holding a grocery list. Some couples open things up. No secrets. Rules. I'm not sneaking around if we agree. Pride can be a prison. That night, it became my spine. My pulse never jumped. You've already opened it, I said, not asking. Her jaw tightened. I'm being honest. So am I now. I rinsed the last glass and set it in the drying rack. Whatever this is, I won't live it. She stared like I'd missed a step in a dance. Then maybe we admit we're not the same people. We aren't, I said, folding the kitchen towel. And tomorrow, I'll start acting like it. I did what I do best. I planned. I wasn't going to hurl plates or threats. I was going to build a clean exit with edges, so polished her excuses would slide right off. That night I slept in the guest room, not because of rage, but because distance sharpens focus. At dawn I ran along the riverway, counting breaths, filing steps into a ledger only I could see. Attorney, documentation, logistics, and, if necessary, public truth released in precisely measured doses. By noon I'd moved money exactly by the prenup's letter, not a dollar more. By 3 I'd changed the locks. By 5 I had a meeting scheduled with Frederick Ames, a Harvard-educated bulldozer wrapped in a gentleman's suit. And by 7, I switched my usual Audi for a forgettable rental and parked across from the Ashford Museum, where Evelyn now worked full-time. She came out at 6:40 with a man I'd never met. Adrian Whitmore, Temple Gray, tailored blazer, the easy touch of someone used to owning doorways. He put his hand at the small of her back with a familiarity that made the air colder. I didn't follow them in when they glided into the Meridian Hotel. I didn't need a scene. I needed proof. Proof is the difference between rumor and leverage. A timestamp valet car, a lobby cam, a bartender's receipt. I gathered what the law allowed and stored it like I store everything, labeled, dated, impossible to argue with. When Evelyn got home after 10, she had a speech ready. We had a board dinner at the Meridian's 11th floor lounge. I asked, how was the view? The speech fell apart. Silence came instead, the heavy kind that presses your ribs until you forget how to breathe. She didn't cry. I didn't either. We just watched 21 years of furniture stand very still. I moved the next morning like a man who had rehearsed this 100 times. I hadn't. It only looked that way. At lunch I called the boys. I didn't smear their mother. I told the truth without theater. Tyler went quiet first. Chase asked 3 times if I was okay. I lied once and told him yes. At 2, I texted Nora Carter, Evelyn's younger sister, back in Boston after humanitarian work overseas. Nora was the opposite of Evelyn's curated brightness. Steady, sleeves rolled, a voice that made frantic rooms remember their pulse. I told her only what she needed to know. I'd be filing. The house would be safe if she needed a landing pad a few weeks while apartment hunting. She replied with a single line that read like an oath. You don't have to say more. I'm here. That night, Evelyn tried again to sell the modern compromise. No lies. No jealousy. We can agree on rules. I poured water, not wine. I have one rule, I said. Respect. We broke it. What do you want, Marcus? She asked. A clean end, I said. And the dignity to never make this uglier than it already is. She nodded like she understood, but the next choices she made would prove she didn't. Frederick's office smelled like leather and strategy. He opened a yellow pad, listened, and didn't flinch. You've got a well-drafted prenup, he said. Massachusetts will split equitable, but this agreement narrows the argument. Keep your hands clean. No revenge spending. No theatrics. We let her lover's shadow do the work. Adrian Whitmore, I said. You know him. Frederick's brows rose. The consultant who's been circling City Arts grants? He's been trying to steer donor-advised money toward experiential installations under Shell LLC's sloppy paper trail. If he's entangled with museum staff, that's not just ugly. It's possibly actionable. I didn't grin. I don't grin at bad things, even when they favor me. I just turned a page in my mind and wrote, ethics, oversight, board. At home, life narrowed to routines because routines save you when everything else falls. I woke, ran, made black coffee, sat with numbers, signed what Frederick placed in front of me, and put every loose emotion on a shelf I promised I'd dust later. When Nora showed up with a single suitcase and a nurse's ID clipped to her pocket, the house exhaled. I'll stay out of your way, she said, scanning the living room like Tria. Stay in it, I replied. There's too much empty space. Nora fit like a measured cord. She stacked her mail in perfect lines, set her shoes by the door, and never turned on a light she didn't need. She took night shifts at Mass General and left Post-its on the counter with things like pasta in the fridge, 2 minutes in microwave, or you're out of pepper. I'll grab some after work. I hadn't realized how starved I was for unperformed kindness until it showed up without asking for applause. We didn't flirt. We did talk. She asked about Brighton Capital like she cared how municipal bonds felt at 3 a.m. I asked about triage and places where supplies come second to courage. Sometimes we fell quiet and let the dishwasher do the talking. Respect isn't loud. It's a chair pulled out wordlessly and a glass of water set beside a stack of overdue mail. Proof kept accumulating. I never pried into what wasn't mine. I documented what was. A hotel clerk confirmed the corporate card Adrian used. Public filings connected Adrian's consultancy to a donor lounge Evelyn now curated. Emails, acquired the legal way, via devices I paid for and accounts we shared, didn't need lurid language to be devastating. He makes me feel seen, she wrote once. The cruelest betrayals are polite. When the locks turned for Evelyn that Tuesday and didn't open, I was ready with boxes stacked, and a letter Frederick approved word for word. No gloating, no insults, just dates, logistics, and a meeting time with both lawyers present to fairly divide what years had layered into our lives. This is my house, she whispered, fury wrapped in disbelief. It was our home, I said. Now it's a memory and a contract. We'll honor both. Did Nora put you up to this? She snapped, scanning the stairs like she'd see her sister's shape in the hallway. Nora didn't betray me, I said, and I won't hide her like she did something wrong. I won't pretend it didn't shake me to watch Evelyn step off our porch with her shoulders tight against the night. But sadness and surrender are not the same thing. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against the wood long enough to let the ache leave. Then I went to my desk and opened a new file titled Ashford Compliance. 2 days later, the plan clicked from private pain into public consequence. The Ashford Museum's board chair, Henrietta Lowell, took my call because Brighton Capital holds endowments she doesn't ignore. I didn't rant. I offered concerns. A consultant pushing sponsored installations, a curator with influence over vendor selection, a chain of transactions that smelled like favors. I'm not here to punish my wife, I said. I'm here to protect an institution my sons grew up loving. Henrietta didn't thank me. Real guardians never do it out loud. She simply said, drop whatever documentation you can share in a counsel's inbox. We will handle the rest. That night Nora found me at the island, hands around an untouched mug. You look like a man who did the right thing and hates how it feels, she said. I'm not out to ruin her, I said. That's why you're the one I trust, she replied, reaching across the counter for my knuckles and not pretending it was nothing. We held that line, distance with honesty, because the divorce papers weren't yet ink dry, and because respect means telling yourself, not yet, even when loneliness makes a case for close enough. The case against Adrian moved faster than I expected. Ethics committees don't sprint, unless somebody hands them a map, timestamps, and incentive. By the time both lawyers met with us in a bright glass conference room, Henrietta had already frozen 2 contracts, and an internal review had begun. Evelyn arrived looking like armor with a smile painted on it. Adrian didn't show. Men like him prefer corridors to rooms with minutes and stenographers. Frederick was a wall I stood behind happily. We signed. We split. We agreed on language that kept our boys out of the blast radius. When we stood to leave, Evelyn said, soft and edged, "You think you've won." I closed my pen. No, I think I stopped losing. Revenge, if you can call it that, works best when it isn't theater, when it's simply the truth introduced to a crowd that thought it bought silence. The Ashford Spring Gala drew donors who prefer their morality with good lighting. I hadn't planned to go. Then Henrietta called and said, "If you can stand it, show up." Transparency plays better when the person harmed isn't hiding. I wore a navy suit and a resolve I didn't need to rehearse. Nora didn't attend. We were still writing our lives with pencils. In the lobby, violins made small talk. I took sparkling water and stood near the back where exits are easy. Evelyn glided in on a column of silk, flawless as always. She didn't look at me. She looked above me, past me, the way people do when eye contact costs too much. Dinner moved like choreography until the program paused. Henrietta tapped a crystal and said the words institutions fear and respect. We have a brief governance statement. The room stilled. In recent weeks, our audit committee reviewed potential conflicts related to outside vendors and advisory relationships. We want to thank community partners for bringing concerns respectfully and directly to us. Contracts have been suspended pending review. We will always choose integrity over expedience. No names, no scandal. But in the hush that followed, eyes traveled like searchlights. Adrian wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. But word travels faster than dessert spoons. Within 48 hours, his consultancy took down a page. Within 72, a quiet note hit the arts blog ecosystem. Whitmore Advisory pauses projects amid ethics questions. I didn't leak anything. I didn't have to. Evelyn cornered me by the coat check afterward, the smile gone. You did this. I told the truth to people who needed to hear it. I said, "You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself." I answered, not unkindly, "I made sure the museum didn't go down with you." "You're enjoying this," she said, like it would damn me. "No," I said, "I'm ending it." 2 more moves, and the board would be set for a future where my sons were protected from fallout I didn't cause. First, I placed the house into a revocable trust with Tyler and Chase as beneficiaries. I kept full control while I was alive. Evelyn would never touch a dollar of equity again. Not vengeance, clarity. Second, I wrote a letter. Not to Evelyn. To our families. 2 pages, plain words, nothing cruel. Dates, decisions, the values I wanted our sons to hold when they built families of their own. Tell the truth. Leave clean. Protect what's worth protecting. I mailed it. Then I turned my phone face down and let a weekend pass without refreshing anybody's opinion. On Monday, Tyler called from campus. "Dad, I read your letter," he said. "I'm proud of you. A grown man can cry without sound." I did, staring at my backyard maple until it doubled. That evening, Nora came home with a paper bag of groceries and placed a small envelope on the counter. "From hospital HR," she said. "I got permanent placement. No more floating." "That's big," I said. We celebrated with 2 sweet sheet cake and coffee I made too strong. She laughed at my coffee. I laughed at her frosting mustache. The house felt like a place where laughter knew its way around again. I kept 1 more card in the deck, not because I needed to play it, but because prudent men keep their options. Adrian had filed a bid on a city arts corridor grant. His submission referenced Ashford partnerships that no longer existed. Public records are a strategist's playground. I forwarded the bid to the city's procurement officer with a single line, notifying to avoid reputational risk for all parties. No accusations, just light. A week later, the bid was withdrawn. I didn't post. I didn't preen. I grilled chicken, FaceTimed the boys about finals, and filled the ice tray because order still soothes me when nothing else does. Losing control makes some people contrite and others theatrical. Evelyn chose theatrical. She posted a filtered square with a caption about choosing herself and escaping a controlling marriage. Friends who don't know the bones beneath a face clucked hearts and sunshine emojis. A cousin called to ask if I really banned her from the house. I didn't argue with feeds. I sent the cousin my letter and asked him to call me after reading. He did. He apologized without excuses. The crowd quieted. Truth has a way of aging better than volume. Then came the visit I didn't plan for. Evelyn showed up at dusk. Heels too high for sidewalks. Makeup that looked like armor. I opened the door because I'm not a man who hides. Nor was it work. The house hummed the way homes do when they sense weather. Adrian dumped me, she said, skipping hello. He said your smear campaign cost him work. I didn't smear, I said. I submitted facts. She stepped closer. Anger burned to ash. Did you ever love me, Marcus? Every day until you made sure I couldn't, I said. She blinked hard and looked away. Are you and Nora? She didn't finish. Not then, I said. Not while this was still a marriage on paper. Not while it would make what you did my mirror image. And now, she asked, voice brittle. Now I'm allowed to live, I said. What I do with that won't be your business. Maybe that was the cleanest revenge of all, letting her see that the weight of her choices would never again dictate mine. She laughed once, short and tired. You're colder than I remember. No, I said. I'm clear. When she left, I locked the deadbolt and stood in the stillness that followed, listening to my heartbeat and the refrigerator's soft rumble and the faint sound of neighbor's dog collar ringing like a bell for ordinary life. At midnight, Nora's key clicked. She found me at the table with a legal pad, drawing boxes I didn't need. You okay? She asked. I think so, I said. I don't feel victorious. I feel finished. Finished is underrated, she said, sliding into the chair across from me. Finished is where better things can start. We didn't touch across that table. We didn't have to. Some promises are loud without sound. 2 days later the decree came through. File stamped, mail done. I took a long run, ironed a shirt I didn't need to wear, and made spaghetti with too much garlic. When Nora came home, I set down 2 plates and 1 truth. If you still want to be here, I said, I'd like to stop pretending the guest room is yours. She didn't rush. She never does. She just reached for my hand like it was a thing she'd earned by being patient and plain-spoken. I won't be your rebound, she said. You won't, I said. You'll be my choice. 6 months is not enough time to fix everything. It is enough time to build something that doesn't wobble. Evelyn took a curatorial job in another city. We don't speak. That isn't spite. That's health. The museum reset its procurement rules and published a 1-paragraph ethics update on its website that made no headlines and changed everything that mattered. Adrian popped up in a different market with a new LLC and less swagger. Men like him don't stop. They reroute. I don't chase reroutes. I protect my lane. Tyler and Chase came home for a long weekend that tasted like grilled corn and second chances. They watched how Nora and I moved around each other and recognized calm when they saw it. On Sunday, Chase lingered after dishes and said, You're lighter, Dad. I'm learning how to be. I said. After they left, Nora and I sat on the back steps, feet on cool slate. Night air carrying the faintest hint of distant barbecue. No rain, no storm, just the soft, ordinary hush that used to sound like boredom and now sound like peace. I said I wouldn't be your rebound. She whispered. You aren't, I said. You're the chapter one didn't know I could write. We don't make dramatic vows. We make breakfast. We sell arms. We text the boys about midterms and scrape plates and argue, gently, about whether the rug should be navy or charcoal. I still run in the mornings. She still forgets where she put her badge. We still leave each other notes. Ordinary has replaced fragile. As for revenge, people keep asking me if I got her. I tell them no. I got free. The rest took care of itself. Evelyn's open marriage became a door she walked through alone. Her lover's contracts met daylight. My house became a trust for my sons. The museum kept its soul. And I kept my dignity so intact I can look my boys in the eyes and say the thing I want them to remember when life demands a decision. Tell the truth. Leave clean. Protect what's worth protecting. When Nora finally moved her last box from the guest room into the master, she stood in the doorway and smiled like someone who understands triage and miracles and the quiet math of staying. Any regrets? She asked. I regret not seeing the cracks sooner, I said. I regret not listening harder when the house got too quiet. I regret that I stayed proud when I should have been curious. I took her hand. But this, choosing clarity over chaos, choosing you when choosing anyone felt impossible. No regrets. She kissed my knuckles. 1, 2, 3, and we turned off the light, not to end a story, but to sleep in a home that finally held the right lines, steady, honest, and ours.